This is the Alex Jones Show. We're going to be here live from 11 a.m., which is right now, to 2 p.m. Central. Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Rob Dew. It's a pleasure to be with you today. We have a lot of big news coming up. We're going to recap some Ebola news that if you were listening to the Sunday show, I went over with Paul Joseph Watson, plus some new news. We are now deploying troops to the area. Of course, it's just for everybody's safety. That's why you deploy troops to areas like this, usually to take them over and grab people's resources. But here we're going to be building hospitals. We're going on humanitarian missions. That's the Mail Online, U.S. to send 3,000 troops to Ebola danger zone. That's going to be, we're going to get into that coming up. At the bottom of this hour, we're going to premiere a video which is going viral on the Alex Jones channel right now. And it's when we sent our crew, I have that up right there, guys. Y'all can pull that up. For our 9/11 Terror Watch in New York City, we sent two of our reporters and a cameraman there. 9/11 firefighter blows WTC cover-up wide open. This is an amazing interview with firefighter Rudy Dent. And he was there. He actually saw World Trade Center 7. He saw the explosions before it collapsed. And he got there after the towers collapsed. So he wasn't really he was in the fog of war, but not so much as, covered in World Trade Center dust. He got there after it had happened. That was happened to be his day off. He's got an amazing story. And then in studio, we're going to have Leanne McAdoo and Joe Biggs talking about what they saw in New York City, all the different things. They were covering a lot of different subjects, but mainly, talking to the 9/11 folks that were there. People still bringing it to the table, trying to wake people up. And I think one of the amazing things during this interview, you see a lot of people in the background. And it really is the perfect picture of our society. A lot of people just hanging out, taking photographs, high-fiving. And here's a guy talking about witnessing one of the worst false flag terror attacks that we've ever had in our country. It basically brought us into two wars. I think we've had our own lost decade of time where, it seemed up till 9/11 we were making progress of waking people up to the left-right paradigm. And after that, boy, it's caught, go to more wars, raise more taxes, have more government, fear the citizens. That's what we've come to. That's the place we're at now. And we have senators saying that if we put any kind of restraints on the NSA, well, that's going to help ISIS. And we have reports that ISIS may be down at the border, but the government's saying, no, that's not happening, even though we've had groups like Judicial Watch sue and get the documents saying they're concerned about ISIS at the border. There's an article, Feds find 9/11 terror message on border fence. And in the second hour, we're going to have Lord Christopher Monckton coming on talking about the independence movement that's going on in Scotland, what it means for the UK, what it means for all of us. He's also going to be talking about the latest news in climate change. There's an article on Drudge where Obama's going after a new coolant because that is now the scourge. It is really interesting how these control freaks, they always try to find one thing and go, this is the problem. This is the problem with everything. And if we stop this, we'll be okay. But then they want to grab something else, and then they control everything. It's all about putting, they say, the camel's nose under the tent. That's what we're dealing with right now.
Hey, there's mind control going on. The signals broadcast 24 hours a day through all this media. Just become aware of it, and they'll say there's nothing going on. And I want to say, put on these glasses or start chewing concrete.
They have taken the hearts and minds of our leaders. They have recruited the rich and the powerful, and they have blinded us to the truth.
The question is, do we all work for central bankers? That's what I want to address to our guest tonight.
Our impulses are being redirected. We are living in an artificially induced state of consciousness that resembles sleep.
An estimated 50 to 70 million Americans suffer from a sleep disorder or sleep deprivation.
Outside the limit of our sight, feeding off us, perched on top of us from birth to death, are our owners.
Latest census numbers prove the United States has the biggest gap between rich and poor compared to all westernized countries today.
Our projections show that by the year 2025, not only America, but the entire planet will be under the protection and the dominion of this power alliance. The gains have been substantial, both for ourselves and for you, the human power elite.
But for the first time in all of human history, mankind is politically awakened. That's a total new reality.
I've got one that can see.
We can't be the only ones who can see.
Unfortunately, you've grown up hearing voices that incessantly warn of government as nothing more than some separate, sinister entity that's at the root of all our problems.
It's a new morning in America. Fresh, vital. The old cynicism is gone. We have faith in our leaders. We're optimistic as to what becomes of it all. It really boils down to our ability to accept. We don't need pessimism.
I have two words for you. Predator drones.
And who are you, little fella?
You will never see it coming.
I'm predicting the first guy who uses a Second Amendment weapon to bring a drone down that's been hovering over his house is going to be a folk hero in this country.
Nice. There is a signal broadcast every second of every day through our television sets.
I'm just trying to warn you folks, the television is a giant LED weapon system. It's so advanced. They got a monkey farm in Bastrop, folks. They do all sorts of testing on great apes, rhesus monkeys, the whole 9 yards. And they go, oh, you didn't see this, and punch a button, and it'd be hundreds of monkeys with wires in their brains with television sets brainwashing them.
All I ever have to do is be famous. People watch me, and they love me.
You can have a little taste of that good life, too. Now, I know you want it. Hell, everybody does.
Do it to your own kind.
What's the threat? We all sell out every day. Might as well be on the winning team.
The real men of the world have to stand up and say, I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum. Time to take a stand, boys. You know what? You got a little courage. Stand up for yourself.
Waging war on corruption. It's Alex Jones coming to you live from the front lines of the InfoWar.
The Oscar winners give a press conference, and how to buy a sailboat as...
And if you were watching video of that on prisonplanet.tv or infowars.com/show for our free video stream, you would have seen all the graphics and video editing that went into that intro, which is kind of a takeoff of, we took some great clips of They Live, part of an interview that we did with Roddy Piper and Sean Stone. And that's the kind of things we do here to wake people up, take the pop culture and infuse real stuff that goes along with it to try to wake people up and see that life is imitating art. Art is imitating life. It's one way we do it here at Infowars.com. This is the Alex Jones Show. Welcome. We're going to be here live till 2 p.m. Central, and we've got a great show lined up. At the bottom of the hour, we're going to have Rudy Dent, an interview that we did in Times Square. He was a firefighter who saw World Trade Center 7 explode and collapse. He saw lots of explosions that he can't explain. And he's asked questions, and he's speaking out, and he's not afraid that his pension's going to get taken away. He's doing it because it's the right thing to do. There's a story that we're also going to have Joe Biggs and Leanne McAdoo in here right after we air that interview, premiere it here live. And they're going to talk about some things that they didn't put out in video. They had police officers coming up to them, telling them stuff. Amazing stuff. And really what it takes is people speaking out. Because if you stand there on the sidelines and wait for someone else to do it, you're going to be waiting an awful long time. The fact that you're recognizing that things are going wrong in this country and in the world means that you really have to start standing up and getting in the ball game. And if people criticize you, that's fine. At least you're doing something. At least you're not just sitting on the sidelines being a spectator or an armchair quarterback. Get out and do something. We have a video that we're going to go to later. A guy went around asking people to support ISIS. He was getting a petition. And people signed it. He had at least 11 signatures. And he said some people wanted to beat him up. Those are the awake people. Those are the people that need to get in and do something. But the people that were asleep, there was at least 11 people he talked to that signed a petition to support ISIS. And there's a video right now. It's at George Mason University in Virginia. And that's what it takes. It takes people doing stuff like this. We have to use their culture paradigms that they've given us, the YouTubes, the Facebooks, and inject messages of freedom and liberty and honesty and hard work and perseverance. We need to inject those messages and health information that they're trying to hide from you. There's a lot of health information out there that you probably don't know about, especially if you just stay in the medical model and go to your doctor and you're taking your prescription drugs. There's ways to do it. I haven't had a prescription drug 8 years, maybe one in between there for I had a really bad case of poison ivy, and I had a steroid to take care of the itch. That's about it. I haven't had anything in a long time because I've decided to take and break away from the medical model, which also means you have to empower yourself. And by empowering yourself, that means you have to take responsibility. So I want to get into this Ebola news now. Mail Online has an article. U.S. to send 3,000 troops to Ebola danger zone as Obama administration shuffles military's mission in Africa. Yeah, there's no shuffling. That's been the plan, which we talked to you about in Obama Deception. Webster Tarpley broke it down, how AFRICOM is going to go in, and that's the next place, and that's why we need a black president to go into Africa. But what's really interesting is you go through this article, and they talked to a Pentagon official, Mail Online did. He says, combat soldiers and Marines will be on hand and ready for anything, said the official, who has knowledge of some but not all of the Ebola-related planning. But hopefully it will be all logistics and hospital building. The president has ordered us to help, and we're eager to do it, he said. Now, it looks like we're going to be the lead dog, and that's bound to make a lot of people nervous. I wonder why. And it's understandable. But no one wants U.S. personnel enforcing someone else's martial law if things go south and the entire region is at risk. At that point, in the response like this, we would normally play a support role for USAID, and that's Soros run, and the CDC, he said, referring to U.S. Agency of International Development and the Centers for Disease Control. So we're sending troops there possibly for a martial law scenario, which they have been training for under the guise of this zombie apocalypse. There's a Christian Science Monitor article from 2012. U.S. military forces train for zombie apocalypse. And Brad Barker, president of Halo Corp, says this is a really good exercise, not just some kind of costume party. I think it's amazing that he's president of Halo Corp. Why not just be the president of the Umbrella Corporation and get it over with? Those of you who have watched Resident Evil will understand that. And over the weekend, there was an interesting article from the New York Times, an opinion piece called The Great Unraveling, just talking about how the systems are breaking down. And this is all done by design to get us into other wars, open up the borders so you have different types of people coming in who aren't supposed to be coming into your country. And you've got these pandemics breaking out with Ebola, all kinds of stuff, really amazing stuff. And we're going to play some special reports as well. I want to go to one here coming up. Let's see. Do we still have time to play that one, guys? Not enough. Okay, we're going to play that in the next segment. And that's about the 28 pages that are being kept classified of the 9/11 Commission report, which is a whitewash in itself. But there's 28 pages that they thought were too damning to release to the public. We've got senators, we've got congressmen, we've got former 9/11 commissioners calling for this to be brought out into the open, for light to be shed on it, so we can all see what's going on. Because we know the official story doesn't have a leg to stand on, especially when you start looking at it from an objective point of view, not from an hysterical mind control, mind slave point of view of problem, reaction, solution. When you take that out of the equation and you look at the fundamentals of who was in charge, who stood down, and all the other millions of smoking guns that come with 9/11, then you see that it is a fraud and the official story does not stand. So we're going to get to that coming up in the break, and I don't even think I'm going to come back. We're just going to go right into that piece about the 28 pages. And then when we come back at the bottom of the hour, we're going to have the Rudy Dent interview, which is an amazing interview. I couldn't believe that this guy, 14 years later, he's still passionate about the topic. He mentions the 3 friends he lost. I mean, this guy is really opening up, and you need to get this interview. It should have more than 225,000 views. I mean, Spider Dog gets 70-something million views, and it's literally a nothing video. I mean, it's funny, but there's no cultural significance to that video other than it's funny. But we're gonna be back with all that. Plus, we have Lord Mockton in the second hour, and in the third hour, we're gonna have the William Binney, Alex Jones interview, an amazing interview. You want to talk about a whistleblower, an NSA whistleblower? He's one of the originals. Way before Edward Snowden decided to come out, there was William Binney.
After the 9/11 attacks, the American public was told that Al-Qaeda acted alone. They told us that 9/11 was not state-sponsored terrorism, meaning no other country or government helped plan, finance, practice, and execute the complicated and well-orchestrated attack on our country. We were led to believe it was perpetrated solely by Osama bin Laden and his al-Qaeda network of radical Muslim extremists. The United States and its allies retaliated first by targeting Afghanistan and then by launching the invasion of Iraq in 2003.
Every nation in every region now has a decision to make. Either you are with us or you are with the terrorists.
But 13 years after September 11th, 2001, there are still questions about who planned and financed 9/11. And 28 censored pages of the official 9/11 report remain classified to this day as a matter of national security. But many surviving family members of the victims and a growing number of the American public aren't buying the Bush administration's original claim that the documents must be kept secret to help investigators hunt down terrorists. In fact, there's recently been a handful of lawmakers who have finally been able to get access to the protected 28 pages, and they are absolutely shocked at the level of foreign state involvement in the attacks.
This is sort of shocking when you read it. As I read it, and we all had our own experience, I had to stop every couple pages and just sort of absorb and try to rearrange my understanding of history for the past 13 years and the years leading up to that. It challenges you to rethink everything. And so I think the whole country needs to go through that.
I want those documents declassified. I'm embarrassed to be associated with a work product that is secret.
Now, federal law forbids these guys to publicly identify which foreign entity was responsible in assisting the terrorist, but judging by the long history of the Bush family's close and personal relationship with the Saudi royal family, all evidence points to Saudi Arabia. And now a bipartisan bill has been sponsored by Congressman Walter Jones and Stephen Lynch, asking President Obama to release the classified records. Yeah, well, don't hold your breath. The new boss is the same as the old boss. Former Senator Bob Graham, who co-chaired the Joint Senate-House investigation into the September 11th attacks, he says, "I am convinced that there was a direct line between at least some of the terrorists who carried out the September 11th attacks and the government of Saudi Arabia." He called it a smoking gun and went on to say the reason for this cover-up goes right up to the White House. Meanwhile, the New York Post says the Saudis deny any role in 9/11, but the CIA in one memo reportedly found incontrovertible evidence that Saudi government officials, not just wealthy Saudi hardliners, but high-level diplomats and intelligence officers employed by the kingdom, helped the hijackers both financially and logistically.
What do we know is in the 28 censored pages of the 9/11 report. People that have seen it said it would bring down the whole system.
I've met with and talked to multiple members of Congress who read it. They are convinced the American people needs to see it. It has to do with information which is not convenient to the White House, either White House, the Clinton White House or the Bush White House, and it has to do with an ally who essentially looked the other way and allowed a lot of support for the terrorists who conducted the attack.
But just to be clear, this is what I've been told, that there was a cover-up, that Saudi Arabia was involved, and basically that's why there was a stand-down, because they didn't want to embarrass the Saudis, and that's why 6 of the 10 commissioners want it released. Is that right?
I can't confirm everything you just said, but I can confirm the Saudi is the name of the country which is being implicated, yes.
And do you think it's going to be released?
I'm working with a number of members of Congress and doing everything I can to help behind the scenes. I hope that they do. I know there's a coalition right now trying to get it released, Alex. I hope they get it released.
That's right. You're working with Walter Jones of North Carolina and Stephen Lynch of Massachusetts.
That's correct, yes.
Well, you guys don't need to fly on any small planes, I'll tell you that.
That's true.
Wow. So the question is, if members of the Saudi government did in fact help train and finance the hijackers, wouldn't that make 9/11 more than just an act of terrorism? I mean, that would make it an act of war. And I think we can all agree that the classified documents no longer, if ever, pose a risk to national security. I guess you could say they do pose a risk to George W. So what are you afraid of, Bush? Why don't you and Obama get together and release the documents? After all, you're either with us or you're with the terrorists.
Hi, I'm Dr. Group. Today, I'm proud and excited to announce a new product to the InfoWars Life product line. Introducing the first proprietary oxygen-based intestinal cleanser, OxyPowder. Backed by real FDA-approved phase 1, 2, and 3 clinical trials. People are suffering from all kinds of digestive issues these days. All the toxins from the air, the food, the water, everything that you're exposed to on a daily basis ultimately ends up in the gut or affects the gut. My main focus was to come up with a remedy for this, something that's safe and effective that anyone can take on a regular basis to keep their intestinal lining clean. You have over 30 feet of intestinal lining that can be compacted, that can be toxic, that can be full of parasites, fungus, bacteria. What are you doing to keep that clean and flushed out? My recommendation is to clean your intestines at least 2 to 3 times a week to prevent the toxic buildup from going into your bloodstream. You owe it to yourself to take your health into your own hands and start cleansing your body today with OxyPowder. Secure your OxyPowder today at InfoWarsLife.com. That's InfoWarsLife.com.